Oh no, too many tabs. Too many tabs.
We're live. Hello, Internet.
Yes, hello. Sorry, I was making sure that like the Facebook group thing was going, and so I moved the window over there, and then I had so many windows open on my other screen that I lost you guys for a second there. But it's okay because I found you again. Um, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to our August movie club. We watched Moonlight, which I was very excited about because it's been on my like want to watch list for a very long time, and it's just one of those movies where I look at it and I'm like, I'm not in the mood for this. So
Same.
yeah, I think I kind of needed somebody to like force me to watch it almost like I missed it when it came out, so it just kind of like fell into that weird category of like movies that I've always really wanted to watch but was never in the mood for. Um, and I'm sure we can discuss that a lot more after I do a little bit of oh, I did put it on the slide. Um, just general housekeeping rules and things like that. So we are having this discussion live. And if you'd like to participate, you can absolutely leave a comment. If you are watching it live, we will see that while we're talking. So you can join in on the conversation in real time. If you aren't able to watch it live and you're watching it on a replay, I do my very best to like make sure that I mark all of the things so that I get notifications when people comment on them. So you can still watch it, you can still comment. We will still get notifications. I am always willing to talk about media with you whenever it is that you have free time. So don't feel like you can't participate in the conversation just because you weren't able to make it to the call. Um, we only allow like 4 people on these calls in the first place, so it's pretty limited seating. Sometimes people want to join in and they can't get onto the calls, so wanted to make sure there was a way for you guys to join in on the discussion. This is one of 3 clubs. I am very tired and it's coming across in my speaking, so I am just going to apologize up front for that throughout this. But we have 3 clubs here at the Dragonfly Arts Collective. This is our movie club. So for the month of August, we watched Moonlight. We also have a monthly listening club where we listen to the music of Betty Davis. And so we're going to talk about that on this coming Wednesday. So looking forward to that discussion. I did pick her debut album, which is Betty Davis by Betty Davis, but I think that she's a interesting icon, and her second album is also really good. And then they kind of like go into a weird space after that. But if you do have time before that call, try to listen to some of her other music because I really want to talk about her as a person and the legacy that she left because she's absolutely fascinating as an icon. We also do a quarterly book club. So we talk about books every 3 months. We want to make sure that people have time to read the book and don't feel rushed. So for August, September, and October, we're reading Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. It's a really fun book. Lots of things to talk about. It moves very, very fast. After you read it, you can watch a TV show on Hulu that is very different from the book, but maybe we can also talk about that a little bit during our discussion in October. I know Beckett watched it.
Oh, yes. We will talk about that.
I have not seen it. Maybe I'll put that on my list of things I want to watch.
It's
I'm
really
pretty
good. I'm really disappointed they're not continuing it.
yeah. I so many things are just getting canceled constantly if it doesn't like get that sort of Stranger Things Squid Game kind of pick up immediately. But we'll talk about that at the end of October. And tonight we're going to be talking about Moonlight, which was released in 2016. It's an A24 movie, which, if you know anything about A24, you know exactly. It's kind of one of those, if you know, you know, sort of statements. Um, really, really good movie. Like I said, I'm glad that I picked it and kind of forced myself to sit down and watch it because I feel like sitting down to watch a movie like this is like a very, very specific vibe. It's not something that you just come across like on
Mhm.
Netflix as you're scrolling and like, this is gonna be a good time. Like,
That's why I had put off watching it for so long because I kinda knew what the content was, and it's not like an feel-good movie, it's not like a fun action time, like, it's a very serious film, so you have to be in, like you said, a certain headspace to enjoy that, which I did.
yeah, fantastic movie. I was in the same spot. I missed it when it was in theaters. So, I just never got around to watching it.
I
Um,
actually, it was released during when my SAG, membership was still current, so I got screeners of it, but I never watched it even though I had it right there.
I mean, there was always so many of them that we would get. We used to, like,
Yeah.
share them with people, like, just distribute them, which is exactly what it says not to do at the front of it. But, um, so Moonlight, it was released in, 2016. It's kind of a coming of age drama. It exists in 3 parts, um, with the character aging throughout it. And just full disclosure from here on in, there will likely be spoilers, although I feel like it's kind of hard to spoil a movie like this. This movie is a vibe.
There are some spoilers though,
Yeah,
so just fair
that's
warning if you don't want to hear any, like, critical details about the film, maybe tune out, go watch it, and then come back.
yeah. Um, like I said at the start, we'll still be here on the replay. So, um, the funny thing is, the night before I watched Moonlight, I watched The Pope's Exorcist. Which is a very, very different movie. But I wrote a comment to a friend of mine when I was halfway through, and I was like, this is a weird movie because it's all been exposition and like nobody has stopped talking at any point in time during The Pope's Exorcist. And then I switched over to Moonlight the next day where nobody talks at all and the story is extremely clear. And I think that is so impressive from like a writing perspective of just like,
Mhm.
yeah, very few words needed. Very few things are needed to be told to you directly.
Yeah, this is definitely a very strong script. I can see why it won Best Picture.
Derek, you'd seen this one before, haven't you?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater and then rented it once and then saw it again this time.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable movie. Um, oh yeah, this poster in front of us is is beautiful. First of all, it really shows what the movie is, even though nothing is happening in this poster. It's just the three actors kind of spliced together
Yeah.
with all the colors. And I'll say about the structure, I was reading on Wikipedia something that surprised me, which is that it was based on a play. And in the play, the structure is more chopped up. Like they'll have, uh, I mean, I haven't read the play, so I don't know the details, but apparently they'll like have scenes from the different um, actors like spliced together. So it's like the young one will have a scene, and then the older
Mm.
one, and then
Mm,
the middle one, and then the younger one again. And apparently, it's kind of a twist in the play that they're all the same person, which is
huh.
very interesting that they didn't do that in the movie. But I kind of like that it's more straightforward. I think it is very I like the clarity of it, and it does. I don't know. It's just interesting to think that, like the in the play, it's apparently choppy, kind of like I said.
Hmm.
The idea that all three of them being the same person. I mean, it does make sense because they do have different names in it. I think I have the cast list, but they list them all as like the different names as he's growing up. He changes his name to match. Um, so it's interesting to like hear that it's kind of like a twist.
Yeah, it kind
Uh,
of
yeah, here
to
we go.
me. Yeah, to me, reading about the play, it kind of sounded like This Is Us, that TV show, which I
Yeah.
have also never seen, but I've heard that they do a similar thing where there's like a younger person and then older scenes with that person, and then it's a twist that it's the same person. I don't know when This Is Us started. I don't know if Moonlight, the play, came first or whatever.
The
I
play
think
is
it probably did.
Yeah, the
Okay.
play is interesting because I think that the playwright wrote it in, like, college, and then it, like, really didn't go anywhere for a while until Barry Jenkins picked it up. And so it has, like, little bits and pieces that he spliced together, Barry Jenkins spliced together, like, with his own life. Um, but I also was curious about, like, looking into it, and then I didn't because, most of my impressiveness with this movie especially is kind of based around the cinematography, which was done by James Laxton, and I guess him and Barry Jenkins were friends in college and, like, did a lot of their, early work together, and then he brought him on to this, and he doesn't really have, like, a lot of credits. I mean, he does have, like, credits, but, like, nothing that I would consider, like, to be a bigger thing. Um, some shorts, he, um yeah, worked with Barry Jenkins, didn't do, After Sun,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it's a lot of smaller things, and it's crazy to me, and then he went on after
Mm-hmm.
this to do If Beale Street Could Talk,
Mm-hmm.
which is also Barry Jenkins. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
and I'm not looking at the list of the cinematographer's credits right now, but did he also do Medicine for Melancholy?
he did.
Okay, yeah, that's Barry Jenkins's
Yeah.
first feature film.
Yeah, he also they did a few short films together before this, like, they are old friends, and I want to, like I wonder if he tried something else and then didn't go back. Um, and then as a weird note that I just realized now is, one of the reasons why I was so impressed by the cinematography on this is because it is incredibly hard to shoot very dark scenes with, like, darker skinned actors in it and shoot them well. And I looked into a whole bunch of how they did this process because it looks beautiful. This is a every frame a painting kind of movie. It's all very, very realistic looking, and they put in a lot of effort to make sure that every single actor's skin tones were accurately portrayed. And I was like, this feels like cinematography that was brought about by somebody who was deeply concerned with that sort of thing. Um, he's just a very generic looking white dude. um, uh, And it's really funny to, like, just he's just, like, a dude, like, wearing a Hawaiian shirt following around the actors with, like, a giant camera on, and it's very funny, but I have a lot of respect for what he did because that is extremely difficult, and I think that in the editing, they actually had to, like, edit around the actors probably to get, like, those, like, super bright colors around them while, having the actors maintain, um, like,
Yeah,
look
I
like
know that
themselves.
that is a common, like, issue within filmmaking just in general, whether it's
Mhm.
movies or TV shows where, a lot of
Photos too.
cinematographers photos too, and yeah, where a lot of cinematographers don't know how to light ethnic skin tones. So they either wash them out too much or you can't even see the facial features. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because all cameras are designed for white people's skin tones, despite the fact of, like, whatever it is that my webcam is doing right now, where, like, suddenly I, like, become the wall behind me. Um, it's something that's difficult and I have a lot of respect for, and so I
Yeah,
wanted to just, like,
it's
put that out there first and foremost.
sure. Yeah, similar issues with like AI facial recognition. Like a lot of the world is just set up for white people, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a huge problem in the camera world,
yeah.
and it's yeah, so they did a fantastic job of, like, keeping those, like, high contrast backgrounds and, like, scenery.
Yeah, it looks amazing. And I'll also point out Medicine for Melancholy. The first movie they did together, I believe, is black and white. Like I saw it quite a while ago, like way before Moonlight. That movie came out in 2008, and it's in it's a good movie. It's kind of like Before Sunrise, except that the main characters are black. But it is interesting that they got it so right in Moonlight, even though in Medicine for Melancholy they didn't quite have to do the same thing. So it's good
Oh,
that they had like I don't know they were able to get it right without practicing. I guess like I don't know I haven't seen their short films together, so maybe that was like the practice. I guess.
yeah, I looked up some of the pictures from Medicine for Melancholy, and yeah, they're very, very they're not black and white, but they're extremely desaturated, so like there's no like mid-tones
Hmm.
anywhere. So yeah, they kind of just like went around the issue stylistically.
Hmm.
The other fun thing about the cinematography that I did not notice when I watched it, and also Ryan didn't notice when he watched it, and this is something that Ryan usually watches because he is a cameraman. Um, all three of the acts were shot as like based on different types of film stock. So each one was shot entirely differently with its own like kind of stock film. That being said, it's all one camera, one lens. So
Interesting. I wonder why they made that choice.
maybe to separate them out, but also to like make it look like each one is a step forward.
Hmm.
So if you're
I
going to
didn't
make
notice.
something like
So
I also didn't notice. And like I saw it and I was like, looking back, yeah, just didn't see it. But I thought that was a really neat thing as well of splitting it into those three parts and really separating them.
Yeah, and yeah, the other thing I'll say about the cinematography is that in this movie, I can't remember if this happens much in Medicine for Melancholy, but in this movie, Barry Jenkins does some things that he continues into if Beale Street Could Talk, which is he often has the actors look straight into the camera lens so that the audience is like looking right at them. Um, it happens a couple of times with Little's mother, or I should say Chiron's mother, to like include all the actors in it. But where the mother is looking in the camera, and it also happens during the really pivotal scene where the bully kind of gets Kevin to punch Chiron, um, and it's a very striking effect. I think it's I watched a short video about if Beale Street Could Talk, where Barry Jenkins talked about this technique, and he talked about how much thought was put into each shot leading up to the moment where the character looks into the camera, and it's this. There's a very pivotal scene in If Beale Street Could Talk where the main character tells her mother that she's pregnant, and she's feeling ashamed of it, so she's nervous about telling her. And it was very interesting to hear the whole thought process behind when the character looks into the camera. I don't know if he's done a similar thing for Moonlight, like a similar explanation, but it was just nice to sort of hear that context around um, like how he gets the sort of effect of the character looking right into the camera.
It's a very like coming to like you have to come to terms. Like in each of those times where that happens, it's like you have to look into that character's face. Almost like you're from the perspective of the person who's usually saying something terrible. And you have to face that reaction, and it's very neat.
yeah, very effective.
Um, to go
Yeah.
back.
Oh, I was
Please.
just going to add one more thing about the face looking into the camera. I once read an article, I don't even know where it was, but it said that Barry Jenkins and Paul Thomas Anderson have become masters of the close up, which is an oddly specific thing to be a master of. But I think it makes a lot of sense in these cases. Like both of them are so good about like showing the actor's face and allowing them to just sit there and sometimes not even do anything with their face, but it just has a profound effect the way they both of these filmmakers use like the close up, I guess.
Barry Jenkins specifically, and this is a very, very far reach of a reminder in my head, but it reminds me of like the old Japanese films by Ozu, where it's all like things that you see from the outside, and like you'll have characters like watching them have a conversation from afar, and then out of nowhere, it will suddenly be somebody talking to you with like the camera like you are the other person, and it's very jarring. um and it kind of like weirdly has that same vibe to me of like you feel like you're an outsider watching this happen, then all of a sudden you have to come to terms with like the characters actually being almost like you forget that they're people for a while, and then you have to like come to terms with them face to face a little bit. um I just remember it being very, very jarring in Tokyo Story, which was the first time I ever watched an Ozu movie, and just being like, his was far more uncomfortable. It's much more nuanced in
Yeah,
Barry Jenkins stuff.
it has kind of like a personalizing effect on putting you in the place of the other actor in the scene, and that can definitely have kind of a either make it more jarring or make it more personal, so that you can kind of put yourself. I mean, I'm already a very empathic and empathetic person, so like I put myself in the shoes of people on screen all the time, but like, it can have that effect. Whereas, like you said about like sitting back watching a movie, watching other, not quite people doing the actions on the screen versus kind of putting yourself in their shoes.
I am kind of the opposite of that. And when it comes to movies, I really like movies because it's me focusing on somebody else's problem while my life fades away in the background. So like suddenly being faced with like, yeah, it definitely like brings you in. It makes it more personal.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you a part of the story again. You're being looked at instead of looking at the thing. Um, so I thought about the Ozu thing, and then I was like, what were Barry Jenkins like? What are his influences? Um, in the Mood for Love, which I could absolutely see a lot of influence in the colors here. But I mostly wanted to bring this up is because he also lists Sarentango as one of his favorite films of all time, and I had to think of Derek, who one time suggested that I watch it. There's actually a few Hungarian movies on this list. I guess Barry Jenkins is really into Hungarian movies.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I once watched a YouTube video where Barry Jenkins went to the Criterion Closet. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos, but basically, they'll invite a filmmaker. The Criterion Collection will invite a filmmaker into their closet, and they are allowed to like grab movies off of the shelf that influence them and take them home. But while they're grabbing the movie, they usually explain why they love this movie so much. And I don't remember the specifics of what Barry Jenkins grabbed, but I do remember that he grabbed a ton. Like he grabbed way more than most filmmakers. He like filled up his bag with them, and um, it was very like relatable, I guess, because like if people like I love the Criterion Collection, so if I was invited into the closet, I would probably try to grab as many as possible to bring them home. But it is an interesting video. I should look it up again. But
Yeah, I'm actually interested in this series. I need to go find it. But yeah, I saw that and I thought of you immediately. I
yeah,
actually haven't watched much Hungarian movies. Should I start? It seems like they're really good.
yeah, I think it's very interesting. Was the other Hungarian movie he listed the Turin horse?
No.
Oh,
The
okay.
other
Is it?
one
Okay.
he listed uh is Zdzieni Leśnych, which is The Roundup.
Oh, I haven't heard of
Um,
that one.
I haven't,
Um,
like I said, I haven't watched a lot of Hungarian movies. My mother's from Slovakia, which is directly north and shares a lot of similarities, mostly because Slovakia was run by Hungary for a very long time. But I have very, very little knowledge of like cultural things from like Hungary or Czechia or Slovakia, and like it feels weird. I really should. Um,
yeah. Just real quickly, I guess you could start with the Turin horse because that's a shorter movie. I mean, it's 2.5 hours, I think. So it's still long by most people's standards, but compared to Satin Tango or however you pronounce it, it is shorter. I do like both of the movies. The Turin horse is kind of funny because it's absurdly punishing to the main character and like his only joy. Well, he's a farmer and he like toils in the fields all day, and his only joy in life is eating a potato at the end of the day, and then it repeats again like a
okay.
so it's that type of movie. But yeah, they're very well made. Yeah, I don't know. You could
Yeah,
start if you're into that kind of thing.
yeah, I'm interested, but I don't want to get too off topic with Hungarian movies. Maybe we'll list one down the road. We can make everybody watch and discuss. Um, but I thought that was interesting. But In the Mood for Love, which Ryan actually suggested like a while back as a movie to watch just because he really likes the colors of it, is definitely very visible in Moonlight. And
I've
I,
never
I
heard of it.
it's from like 2000s. It's a Chinese movie.
Mm.
Wong Kar-wai.
Yeah,
Um,
it's specifically from Hong Kong, but
okay.
uh, it has a similar feeling to Moonlight in that it's a lot of it is communicated in silence, and there's kind of a feeling of longing throughout the whole thing. Uh, in the case of In the Mood for Love, it is between a man and a woman. I can't remember the exact specifics of the plot, but I think the main guy does feel a lot of longing for the woman over a long period of time, and I think they're both married to other people, and they have kind of this unique relationship where they love being together, but they can't actually get together romantically. I can definitely see the similarities to Moonlight in, especially in the colors, but also in the mood of it, like the vibes, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I think I watched In the Mood for Love during my time frame of my life where I really wanted to say I watched a lot of movies, but I wasn't quite paying attention to them. Um, Actually paying attention to movies is not something that I started doing until like fairly recently, to be completely honest. Like probably like 5 or 6 years ago. It's very sad. But I do remember the colors specifically, and I wanted to go back to the colors because, like I said at the start, this is an A24 movie. And if you know what that means, you just know what that means. And I think it's when I think of A24 movies, I always think of the neon. So in this movie, it would be like when his mom is standing in the hallway, and then there's all of a sudden like red, pinkish light coming from either side. Um, that is what I would determine is the A24 moment. Um, But A24
Yeah,
is a great production company. I know that Derek and I have talked briefly about it, but do you know Beckett?
I don't. Um, this I don't know. I feel like I've seen a few of their movies, but I can't remember. I'd have to look at the list again.
It's a pretty big list, but what A24 is mainly known for is they kind of just put their money into directors and let them kind of do what the directors want. So it creates movies like Moonlight or Everything Everywhere All at Once was an A24
Mm,
movie. Um, that's probably one of the most popular ones, at
yeah.
least for
Yeah.
now.
Speaking of the colors, you mentioned earlier about this poster, I think, Derek, and this coming from a marketing and graphic design background, like it's so simple and yet so iconic. Like you can't help but think of this movie and this poster in conjunction. Like it sticks out in my mind from the marketing of this film back in the day. It's just brilliant the way that they did it.
There's
And
Yeah.
so
also
simple.
this one.
Oh, there's this one.
I
Yeah,
don't remember. I didn't see this one.
yeah, I don't know if I've seen this either, but yeah, I would definitely agree about the original poster with the three of them. I mean, thinking back, I guess I don't necessarily pay attention to movie posters that much, but I do think the Moonlight one, this one, is one of the best posters ever. Like it's just so perfect. Yeah, I love this poster.
It's gorgeously done from a photography standpoint as well. Like they went
Mm,
in knowing this is exactly what they wanted, and
yeah. Well, I mean,
they
from the
lined it up
detail, yeah, the
fantastically.
pose and the way that they shot his face at that angle, and each of the three actors, like that's pretty hard to accomplish. Not to mention like the fading and the focus. Like it's gorgeous. It stands out among a sea of movie. And I consume a lot of movie posters because, like I said, I'm a designer and I look at those things.
When I saw this poster for the very first time, it wasn't until like I looked into it more that I even realized it was three different people.
I know.
Um,
No, same.
yeah.
Like I had no idea. I thought it was just like a cut, image of one guy.
So the top A24 movies of all time: Everything Everywhere All at Once, Hereditary, Lady Bird, Moonlight is number 4, and then The Whale, Talk to Me, which is very impressive because I think Talk to Me like just came out recently. Uncut Gems, Midsommar, The Witch, and Ex Machina in that
Mm-hmm.
order.
Yeah, they have the most impressive list of movies of any production company I've ever seen. And to be honest, I actually forgot that Moonlight was one of the it was made by A24. I always associate A24 with horror movies, like artsy horror movies,
Yeah.
specifically The Witch and Hereditary. But it's incredible how uh, I don't know. I mean, it's just an incredible list. There's a lot of variety on it, and they're all incredible. Like all of those movies in their own way.
Yeah. I think that A24 also did Euphoria, by the way, and
Oh,
Beef.
I've been
A24
wanting
did
to
both of
watch
those
Beef.
TV shows. It's an interesting one, which is I think what A24 really is they started off as a distribution company, and like I said, they put money into people they like. So you'll see the same directors pop up on there. So speaking of Hereditary and Midsommar, both of those are Ari Aster. And they also did Beau is Afraid, which um absolutely fascinating and very weird movie. But like they put their money into people and just hand them money. And on the flip side of that, I think they also release more movies a year now than any other studio.
Hmm.
But also, we think of them and they're like, yeah, A24. They actually are very good at burying the bad movies that they have made. But they kind of just give money to production and like there's not a lot of oversight. And so they consistently come up with things that are new and interesting. that they can put their
Yeah.
name on.
Willing to take risks in filmmaking. That is a gem these days. Not a lot of studios are willing to do that.
I don't know if this movie would be made or be allowed to be made without that. It only cost $5 million to make, so it technically would count as like an indie film in that regard, and maybe it could like get in under. But I don't think it would be as big of a hit if it wasn't for just A24 just handing out money to people who are really, really talented. How it should be, honestly.
How did it perform at the box office?
Really well, I think. I have
I,
the notes on here.
yeah, I think yeah, worldwide box office.
Yeah, box
Um,
office was 65 million.
yeah, so
Wow.
But
that's
that is just
huge.
box office. Yeah.
But yeah, for a movie like this, I mean, like you said in the beginning, there's no action. It's about this coming of age story that a guy coming to terms with his homosexuality. And I mean, it, none of it says that it'll be a hit. Like, if you go down what the movie is about and what the mood is, it doesn't seem like it would make money, but it did, and it's pretty incredible.
You know
But
what
I
I
think,
really
yeah.
oh, sorry.
Oh,
I
I
was
was
just
just
gonna
gonna.
say
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead,
oh,
Derek.
I was just gonna say the execution is so amazing, that I think it's. I don't know. It helped the box office, but it's still
Yeah.
surprising that it made so much.
Speaking of, and kind of a nice segue into what I was gonna say is like I was looking at your little breakdown here and the music. I didn't even think of the music like the whole time I was watching the movie. I know it was there because all movies have an underscore, and if they don't, it like really takes away from the movie watching experience. But it's like it's so well integrated into the story and into just the background of the film, like, you don't even notice it. It was great. Really,
Um,
really well made.
the music on it was gorgeously done, and I I actually found it to be quite jarring because it doesn't exist in most of it, to be completely honest. Like the
Maybe
reason.
that's why I didn't notice it.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's very, very little music for like large chunks of it. A lot of this movie exists in almost like silence and ambience.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it definitely carries a thread of tension throughout. Like, I didn't know when and spoiler warning, I didn't know when they met up again as adults, like, what was gonna happen. Like, I was very nervous.
um,
Yeah, I think I either saw an interview with Barry Jenkins or read his comments on the music, and I believe he said something to the effect of he wanted like orchestral music because orchestral music is not usually used in conjunction with images of black people, and so it was a unique thing. It does use hip hop in like the last segment, like when
mhm.
Black is driving around in his car, he's listening to hip hop, but it was like a conscious decision from Barry Jenkins to like juxtapose images of black people, some of whom are crack dealers or crackheads, juxtapose those images with like quote unquote classy orchestral music.
Yeah, I think they actually use like Mozart in it in several points in time. But I did notice it was like a huge like juxtaposition almost of I think a lot of the music that we hear is like either in the scene, like it is somebody driving a car, or like you can tell that it's coming from like this window over here. Like you know where the music's
Yeah,
coming from, or it's
because it's
extremely
so
minimal. Yeah.
it's very well integrated into the landscape, so it's
Yeah.
not even noticeable.
But then you have these really lovely scenes that I think that I know that for a fact Barry Jenkins like took a lot of inspiration from photographers whose main work was either extremely color oriented or it was just like very what's the word I'm thinking of? It was just like normal everyday images of Black life. Um, and
Mm.
yeah, so a lot of them were like there's a lot of natural lighting, but then also a lot of color in the movie, and I think that also plays into the soundtrack of it, where there's a lot of the songs that we hear, you can tell where they're coming from. They're just a part of normal everyday life, or
Mm.
you're just hearing the sounds of everyday life without a score, and then you just have these absolutely gorgeous scenes, like at the end, um, where he's like cooking the meal and it's like filmed like this absolutely gorgeous like dream sequence kind of thing. And then there's like an orchestral score. The same with like the swimming lesson. Like it's shot, a lot of the movie is shot like you are watching something happening. And then some of the movie is shot extremely cinematically and like dreamlike and very thought through. Um, like there'll be lens flares or water hitting the camera in a very artistic way, and those are the moments where you have that really heavy classical thing, and it's a weird juxtaposition between normal everyday life and these like magical moments.
Kind of like life.
Yeah, kind of like life. Was that understandable? I feel like I just went on a rant and like had to figure out my thoughts on the way there.
Yeah. That speaking of that swimming lesson scene, just very, very interestingly shot where you feel like you're kind of going under as if you would if you were the one learning to swim. Like the way that the camera hovers right at the water level and the water is like constantly lapping over it. Yeah. It has a very specific cinematic effect.
That was the image that I saw for James Laxton, the cinematographer. So it's them like doing the scene and it's just like him standing there in like a Hawaiian shirt with like water coming up and it just made me laugh really hard. But it's a beautifully shot scene. I think that's the most commonly seen, like whenever you look up Moonlight, that's the screenshot you see.
It was the banner image on Amazon.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, I was just well, yeah. To I guess to change the subject a little bit, I would like talk about the characters themselves. I think Mahershala Ali's character is pretty incredible. He's like the most compassionate crack dealer in movie history, but it's so touching. Like especially his last scene where Chiron, little Chiron, is sort of questioning him about if he'll still deal crack, and Mahershala Ali is kind of silently nodding, and then he looks down like he's ashamed of it, and then Little walks away, and then it cuts to the middle portion, the middle Chiron or whatever. But yeah, it's just so interesting, like to see a portrayal of a crack dealer who is such a father figure, I guess.
I
Yeah.
know that Naomi Harris, who played the mom in it, initially didn't want to take the role because she didn't want to be a stereotype crackhead. And Barry Jenkins was like, no, 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 no. These are based on like people I know. Like, you're not going to do this. And so it's like this incredible, like, writing and performance of like viewing these people as, like we said earlier, real people, things that are generally stereotypes. And yeah, definitely. Mahershala Ali did a fantastic job of just like being a crack dealer, like something that you see so like much as a stereotype and just like the flip side of it.
Yeah, well, and more of a, I feel like, realistic portrayal of that kind of a person versus what we normally get in media, because these are just people, and due to, systemic circumstances that are out of their control, they end up doing, things that are kind of under the law in order to make a life for themselves. But they're still just people. They're still mothers and fathers and, all that stuff.
I think that's what this movie especially does a fantastic job of it's you seeing a piece of life for something that you do usually see a stereotype for, like all the way across the board throughout all the points in his life. I think the most probably stereotypical looking one is probably like Chiron, like when he was just a teenager. um, um, that's the one that feels the most like it's not. I don't know. I'm gonna end that
Yeah,
thought there because it
I
wasn't fully formed. I apologize today.
I do kinda get a feeling that I don't know teenage Chiron as well as the other 2. Like, I'm not really clear on just who he is as a person, but I guess that's kind of what adolescence is. So,
Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with that somewhat. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like he doesn't. I mean, in the middle section, he is kind of just reacting to what other people do to him until the end when he smashes the bully with the chair. So it does create this feeling that he might not have a personality at that point. He's just sort of going along with what he thinks he needs to do to survive. Um, and I would, yeah, I'm not entirely sure if it's a bad point, but I would also add that I get the same feeling from Kevin in all of his different stages that he is. Like the snippets of him are so quick that it doesn't quite feel like a full human being. Um,
yeah. It's almost like we're seeing Kevin from Chiron's point of view as more of an idea than a person.
I think also, and I just had this thought. I think the reason why the teen years also feel like that is because you have him as a child with like an actual father figure, and then you have him essentially being the same age as his father figure in the last one. And a lot of this movie is about like just like masculinity and like their identity as a black gay man and like
Mhm.
kind of like the start of that and then coming to terms with that. And I think that those teen years are where he's trying to portray an image, and I think all of them are.
Mhm.
All of the teenagers are like, this is what a badass gangster is like, so I'm gonna punch people or like make fun of this. Or even Kevin just being like, yeah, I was banging a girl under the stairs, which may or may not have actually happened. It's he could have just been saying that. Like these are all like what teens think being a man is.
Mhm.
And then when he actually becomes an adult, it's him coming back around and like taking responsibility for his mom and like going to actually see Kevin and talking
Yeah.
about his past. So that's probably why the teen years just feel so weird and
Yeah.
like they're not trying to be anything else in our stereotype, is because that, yeah, that is what teens are.
Yeah, well, and if I correct me if I am recalling incorrectly, but I feel like didn't Juan also say at the end of Little's portion something about, like, you have to figure yourself out? You have to, like, find who you are, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then we go into, Chiron being a teenager and not really knowing what that is yet.
Yeah. One having that conversation, like, described all of those feelings, like, better than I think I have ever heard anybody express any of those feelings before,
mhm,
of just, like, his, "What's a faggot?" And just being like,
mhm,
That's a word that people say to make gay people feel bad about themselves." And I'm like, "Ah, that was just so nice and so sweet."
mhm.
And And that entire discussion was just like, if I ever have a child concerned about his gay like identity and being called names, I feel like I would just show them that scene
Mm.
because it
Yeah,
did it better than I think I could.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that scene is incredible. It's one that has always stood out to me, and it's yeah, the writing in that scene is so perfect. Like Juan's just response, and it starts when, well, I think it starts a bit earlier, but the scene really gets going when Little is asking, "What's a faggot?" and then Juan says that explanation, which is just perfectly worded. And again, it's so interesting to hear that explanation come from the mouth of a character who would usually be portrayed as a stereotypical criminal. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
Someone
fantastic all
someone
around.
hard and homophobic themselves and, not
Mhm.
really sympathetic to what Chiron may be going through.
Mhm.
But that's not the character, that's not who he is, and I think that humanizing someone like that really opens up, like, the audience's perspective and viewing these people with more humanity because we hear a lot of stories about, like, oh, crack dealer, drug dealer, they're inhuman, they lack compassion, they're not, they're just criminals, but they're not, they're just people.
Yeah. I'll just mention, well, this is a bit off topic, but one time I was in a restaurant and I was in line to buy a cookie, and I didn't realize that Mahershala Ali was behind me, like waiting in line. Like my friend had to tell me later who was behind me, and I think I took a long time to buy the cookie, but and then I accidentally stood in front of Mahershala's car. Like I was talking to someone else, and I was sort of like blocking the door accidentally, like without thinking of it. But Mahershala didn't say anything to me, so I didn't even know he was there. Like eventually, my friend took me aside and said who it was, and that I was blocking the car. So I felt bad about it, but it was. I mean, even though I didn't interact with him, it was very nice that he was patient with me and he didn't like try to get me to move out of the way. I guess. So
He's
yeah,
such a good actor.
yeah, he's amazing.
I love him in,
Yeah.
like, everything I've seen him in.
Yeah, um, he definitely deserved the Oscar for this movie, Moonlight, and he won a second time for Green Book, which
Mm.
is not as good a movie, like to put it mildly.
Speaking of the Oscars, we have to talk about what happened when
Oh,
this
yes,
movie
with La
won.
La Land.
Oh my god. One of the funniest fuck ups ever.
Mhm. Yeah, that
Uh,
was hilarious, and it in a way it's I mean it was interesting because La La Land is the type of movie that usually wins Oscars, and I was so glad that Moonlight won instead.
Yeah,
It's like La La
same.
Land is just a musical about the magic of movies, and that type of thing wins all the time. But
I hated La La Land. I was so
I
I hadn't seen Moonlight at the time, obviously, because I just watched it for this discussion. But I was also very glad that La La Land lost to this one because that movie's I don't know why everyone loved it so much. It was horrible.
I loved the opening sequence mostly because I was like, "That's the 405. You guys had to shut down the 405 to do this musical number? That's
That that
insane."
was that was the one part that I will give it props for. That was a fun sequence,
And
but,
then the
like,
rest of it, I agree with you. Moonlight was definitely a much better made movie, and
yeah.
La La Land was fine, but it was a little bit pretentious.
La
So,
La Land just felt to me like Hollywood, kinda jerking itself off. That was the
yeah.
entire film. It was so stupid.
Those movies are very common, and I always know when I watch them. Then I
It's
usually
true.
say that at the end of it. Um,
Yeah, this
but
one definitely deserved the award much more, and I'm glad that they got it, and I I still, like I just recently watched that video again from the Oscars that year. I don't know why. I think it like popped up on like Twitter or something. Somebody was talking about like events. I don't know, whatever. But like it still makes me wonder exactly what was going on there. Like how do you mix that up? I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
a really funny instance.
Speaking of Mahershala Ali, I was just looking at like his filmography. I was like, what else does he have coming out? He's going to be Blade in 2025, which,
Oh.
yeah, also starring in Leave the World Behind, which is coming out on December 8th. That is a book that I own over there and have never read. So it was a good reminder that I should probably do that. But um, so excited about that. I need to go check out, see what all the other kids in this movie, what are they up to?
Yeah, yeah, I guess I haven't. Oh, I did see the teenage Chiron in this HBO movie, Native Son. Like he plays the main character in that, and he has green hair. And Trevante Rhodes is interesting. He plays the older Chiron.
Mhm.
He used to be a track and field runner, and then he became an actor. But he did an amazing job in this movie.
He was like a professional track and field runner?
Yeah, I think so. Like at
Yeah.
least in I don't know
Um,
if in college.
yeah, he
Hmm.
was a college track and field runner. That's actually how he had his college paid for. He was a sprinter.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw him. I don't know what he's gonna be in recently, but I did see him in the latest Predator movie. He was one of the human characters hunting the Predator. There was like
Yeah.
a Shane Black reboot of Predator from
Um,
2018 or something.
yeah, from 2018. He also was in Bird Box that year. It doesn't look like he has anything else coming out.
Oh,
His
was he
most recent
the
movie was in Bruiser, which I've
he
never
was
even
the
heard of.
husband in Bird Box, right?
I've never seen Bird Box, so I don't actually
No.
know.
Oh, Bird Box is very good.
The most recent thing that Ashton Sanders, who was the teenage Chiron, was in was the Whitney Houston biopic, which somebody actually just recommended and was like, "Yeah, I heard it was really good." So I'll have to go with that. It seems like Jarrell Jerome is just Prowler is just what he's working on now from Across the Spider-Verse.
Hmm.
Let's see, what else do we
Yeah,
got?
he was in When They See Us, the Ava DuVernay Netflix series about the Chicago Five.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
I remember that.
yeah, he gives a
Oh, I
really
don't remember
great
him in that,
performance in
but
it.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of like big upcoming movies for really anybody except for Mahershala Ali. So I'll have to be on the lookout for that. Um, I always like to see what really good actors are going to be in next.
Yeah, him. I mean, one mildly interesting thing about him being Blade is that he was already in the Marvel series Luke Cage playing the villain. So he's one of the
hmm.
few actors who's like double dipping Marvel with different characters.
I'm gonna have to
Um,
keep that in mind for actually.
mm. And one other thing, I've heard that Barry Jenkins is gonna do the sequel to Lion King, like a Disney live action remake, which seems like a waste of his talent. But I
It
guess
does
if
feel
he,
weird.
yeah, if he,
Yeah.
I mean, they already did that though. It was terrible.
So he is the director of Mufasa, The Lion King, which is
Oh.
coming out in 2024. He also has a movie that he wrote coming out in 2024 called Flint Strong, but he was not the director of it. Um,
I had forgotten that Mahershala Ali was in Luke Cage. Luke Cage is really good. They discontinued that one and Jessica Jones. Man, I don't know why I keep losing connection to my camera, but I'm just gonna keep going. When Marvel was bought by Disney, because then Netflix lost the rights to produce those shows, unfortunately. I was very bummed about that.
Yeah. It's going to be a while before we have like a lot of new movies in production due to the strike.
Yeah.
We are coming up on an hour, so I do want to do our best to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So if you have any final thoughts, absolutely let me know.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to ask, have either of you seen If Beale Street Could Talk?
No, I actually haven't seen
Mhm.
anything else that Barry Jenkins has done. So I am going to have to go back and watch them, especially now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, If Beale Street Could Talk is also very, very good, and it has an amazing performance by Regina King. I would put the movie only slightly under Moonlight.
Okay.
It's still one of the best movies of that year, but it's definitely worth watching. It's a great movie in its own right.
Yeah, I will absolutely take that suggestion because this movie was phenomenal and I'm very interested in looking into his work. But like I said, it was just one of those things that I kept seeing and it feels like intimidating and I didn't get in at first. Absolutely, I'm going to continue to watch Barry Jenkins and to look into and watch more of his work.
Mhm.
Um,
The only thing I was going to add is I actually remembered to put the Patreon link in the description for this live. So if you're watching and you like what we do and you would like to support us, feel free to join us on Patreon.
and if you can't support us, just still talk to us, join us. We have a bunch of stuff going on. We got a Facebook group.
Watching our videos and interacting and commenting and participating with us is more than enough support, if that's what you would rather do.
So there is our link to the Facebook group down there. So I guess on that note, I will sign off for the evening, but we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about Betty Davis. So
Yeah.
come back and join us then. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.